Guys, AI is stealing US worker jobs at record pace. But don't just take my word for it. Stanford just released a study and the results are shocking. But what's interesting to me is the results of this study show that it's not actually older workers that are being impacted. It's the younger workers who are just getting out of school that are trying to enter the workforce. But guys, once you understand the implications and what's happening on the back end, you're going to be very shocked. I was shocked when I started to research what is happening with these job numbers. So today we're going to talk about the Stanford study, the implications, the results, and what's happening in the US workforce as a whole. Because guys, AI is completely transforming jobs. Goldman Sachs anticipates 300 million jobs displaced over the next 5 years. And they're not the only ones. All the big organizations, McKinsey, WEF, they're all predicting massive job displacement. And it's quite frankly, it's going to be particularly hard for men because as men, we garner respect, relevancy, financial freedom from what we do. And if you get laid off because of a robot, you are going to be unable to feel that sense of purpose and respect and relevancy. What we do as men is really important to the way that we see ourselves. And let's face it, a world with strong, independent thinking, relevant men is a better world. That's my opinion. Our kids need us, guys. Our kids need us. So at any rate, if that's interesting to you, if you want to stay up to date on all this stuff, now is the time to hit subscribe, to hit the like, and to yell at me in the comments, okay? So let's get into today's video, where we're talking about AI stealing these jobs. So Stanford University had this study, and what they did was they analyzed payroll data from the automatic data processing, the ADP, covering millions of employees. And what they found is that from the late 2022 to mid 2025, there was a 16% relative decline in entry-level employment in AI exposed fields, specifically software working, software engineering, software development, and customer support roles. They have dropped 16% since 2022. Pretty substantial drop, guys. And by the way, a lot of these jobs are heavily male dominated. Obviously, customer service can go both ways, but typically the software roles are going to be male dominated. And you'll notice that late 2022 is the exact same time where ChatGPT hit the scene. So ChatGPT hits the scene, and all of a sudden, there's less job opportunity for young workers. And again, we're going to get into this because the most at risk are workers ages 22 to 25. And just to kind of support this, I recorded a video a couple weeks ago that reported what's happening with unemployment amongst college graduates. And I'm going to post a link to it here because I think it's hyper relevant. And when I saw the data, I was shocked because just this year, the unemployment rate amongst college graduates has increased from 5.8% to 6.6%, nearly 1 percentage point, nearly a 20% increase in unemployment amongst college graduates in just 1 year, less than a year, 6 months. What do you think that looks like when you start extrapolating it over 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? It's a big problem because what's occurring is the bottom rung of the career employment ladder is being completely removed, which is, again, something that's interesting. Again, I cover this in depth in this video, so I'll check it. I recommend you check it out. But that is happening. And we're going to talk about the implications of all this in just a moment. So just stay with me. What they saw is that software development entry-level positions have seen a nearly 20% drop for 22 to 25-year-olds since late 2022. And so, again, we're seeing a huge drop in these entry-level roles, 16%. But what they also found, Stanford found in this study, was that older workers between 35 to 49 actually saw an increase in jobs of about 9%, which I think is fascinating because when I started to see AI roll into the field, my initial assumption was that young people using AI were going to take out all the older people that weren't using AI. But what we're seeing is it's actually the opposite. Older, more experienced, more wise, more tricks of the trade type people that have more experience and leadership and connections are actually holding the jobs, leveraging AI, and saying, I don't actually need an assistant to write my email this morning because I have ChatGPT to do it, which is interesting, right? So what we're seeing again in customer service and administrative roles, entry level, is that AI chatbots are handling routine queries and have contributed to about a 13% overall decline. And so the Stanford professor, Eric Brynjolfsson, great name, has a few interesting quotes here. He's an economist and Stanford professor. He says, there is definitely evidence that AI is beginning to have a big effect. He follows by saying, this is the fastest, broadest change that I've seen, except maybe comparing it to the COVID-19 pandemic, which, holy crap, if you're comparing AI's impact on the workplace to COVID's impact on the workplace, I think we can agree that it's pretty substantial, because I don't know about you, but COVID was draconian and dramatic. How many tens of thousands of restaurants closed down due to COVID? How many people went from working in an office to working remotely at home? And then you say, well, we actually don't need you because we have AI now that can perform those roles. And yeah, I don't know. Don't get me started, guys. Don't get me started on COVID. It really pisses me off when I start to think about the lockdowns that occurred and the censorship that occurred. Don't get me started on it. I don't want to go down that path. I will get angry. So let's take a look here. So I think we can all agree, guys, that the younger workers are being impacted. You're seeing the data, you're seeing the numbers, you're seeing college unemployment, you're seeing the removal of these entry-level roles. It is pretty clear that AI is absorbing these roles, okay? Why are the older workers not being impacted yet? And I think this is interesting because the more experienced workers, aged 35 to 49, in these fields actually grew by 9%, suggesting that the AI augments the productivity for the seniors, but replaces the juniors who perform automatable, quote unquote, book knowledge style tasks. AI is really good at knowing what is understanding the book. It's like book smarts versus street smarts. You know, I'll give you a perfect example of this. When I was in school, all through school, elementary through high school, I took Spanish. It was required. But you know what? I did not learn how to speak Spanish very well. After I graduated, I worked in a restaurant after I graduated from high school, I worked in a restaurant kitchen for a couple years. Guys, after 2 weeks in a kitchen, I was speaking Spanish. I was habling español. And I think this kind of exemplifies the point here. It's one thing to like read a book and kind of understand the books, but once you're actually in the field and actually doing something, you gain wisdom. And so what's happening here is that the older workers, like me and you, the men, we have families, we've got kids to provide for, we have years of experience. And so by leveraging AI, we're able to become much more productive, okay? We're able to become much more efficient. And the younger workers are struggling here because when you have ChatGPT, you have a PhD in your pocket, right? And so everybody all of a sudden becomes extremely book smart immediately. They might not lack the common sense. They might not have the common sense. They might not have the wisdom, but you don't need to have a 6-year college degree to be able to have in-depth conversations at a PhD level. I recorded a video on this a few weeks ago about how AI is impacting healthcare. I'll put a link to it here. But what doctors are actually noting now is that the questions that they're getting from their patients are unprecedented. The context, the specificity of the questions is very high. And I think that is, honestly, it's a great thing. It allows us to have more control over our health, over our destiny, by leveraging ChatGPT as a PhD in our pocket to think through ideas, to consider different options, and to hyper contextualize what we're thinking about. So just to kind of extrapolate on this idea, quote, and this is a quote from Eric Brynjolfsson. He says, more senior workers have more tacit knowledge. They learn tricks of the trade that may never get written down. Those are not things that AI has been able to learn, at least not yet. At least not yet. And quite frankly, you know, people in the comments say stuff like, it never will be able to, AGI is a myth, it'll never happen. And that may be. However, that said, if you're not leveraging AI, if you're not using AI to perform tasks, if you're not using ChatGPT and automating artificial intelligence and leveraging chatbots and these sorts of things, you are putting yourself at risk. You are putting yourself at risk. and we're kind of moving into the implication phase of the video here today. But I will say this, I was talking to a client of mine who was kind of thinking about she works for one of the companies that I do consulting for, and she was thinking about kind of shifting her career and what she wants to do. And my kind of thought was this, I was like, whatever you do, obviously you want to be passionate about it, but B, don't just show up to work. You need to be able to show that there's a direct result, a direct impact that came from the actions that you took within the organization. When I bring on a client, I want to be able to show this is how many leads you were getting before I came on board. This is how many leads you're getting after. This is how many sales you were getting before I came on board. This is how many sales you're getting after. If you're not able to show that cause and effect that you have, the impact that you have on an organization, you are highly, highly replaceable. Okay? And, you know, we're moving out of a phase of who does the work to who gets the results. So that's my kind of thought there. And if you're not using AI, that's going to be a problem. Okay, but let's talk a little bit more deeply. Like, if all these kids can't get jobs, if your sons and daughters can't get jobs, what does that mean? Well, Eric von Holsten says, we're going to have to think about how the labor market adjusts so that everyone has a chance to be working their way up the career ladder. Because what's happening again is the first rung of the career ladder is being removed, so you don't actually get the reps in the field. The other problem is it's creating a massive generational barrier. And when I started getting into some of the numbers and what's happening with wealth creation, I was pretty shocked, because what ends up resulting is there's stagnant wages, there's higher debt burdens, and it delays financial milestones. I mean, when you look at home ownership, for example, right now, baby boomers own 41% of the real estate, where Gen Z and millennials hold 20% combined. That to me was crazy. Now, and I understand that owning a home is tough, and the older you are, the more likely you are to have purchased a home, taken out a loan, built up your wealth. But I think when you say 20% of people 20 to 42, that group only holds 20% of home ownership, I think that's a kind of a startling statistic. And the student debt averages $100,000 for a Gen Z graduate. This is leading to, and someone put this in the comments the other day, that this is accelerating a massive revolution. Okay. And if you're not familiar with the concept of the fourth turning, it's probably worth checking out. But essentially what we see is that over the course of 4 generations, over the course of 80 years, there comes a massive crisis. And if you look at American history, you go back 80 years, you have World War II. Go back 80 years before that, you have the Civil War. You go 80 years back, you have the Revolutionary War, and so on, and so on, and so on. And so the thesis right now is that we are at the cusp of the next major revolution, the next major crisis. And you might ask, well, Mark, that's interesting. 80 years, why is that? Well, because you have 4 generations, and this is what happens. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create bad times, and the bad times create strong men. And we are at a position, and I was just back to this young woman I was talking to the other day when we were talking about, what do you want your role to be? We've had it easy. Honestly, I'm 42. My life has been pretty easy. I'm not going to say that there weren't any crises. There have been, but I mean, nothing compared to like a Great Depression style, World War II style, Civil War style crisis. My life is overall pretty cushy. I mean, look at me. I'm walking down the street recording on my smartphone. Like, in the context of life, it's pretty easy. We are overdue, guys. And if you start looking back at history, you'll see that we are overdue. So anyway, I don't want to doom and gloom you, but what I will say is that AI is changing everything. Young people are having a very difficult time finding jobs because those jobs are being supplanted by AI. These kids are coming out of college with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. They're not able to find jobs. And they're going to get really pissed off, guys. They're going to get really pissed off. And just wait until the robots come and they start automating more jobs. I'm not going to kind of speculate on all the things that will happen, but jobs are on the line, guys. Lives are on the line. And the reality is for guys like you and me, we have families, we have wives, we have communities that rely on us. We need to stay relevant, respected, and financially free. And how do we do that? We learn, we adapt, we're curious, we stay in the know on what's happening. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment below. And if you did like this video, I think you're really gonna like yesterday's video where we talk about what's happening with Intel, a company that essentially went bust, but the US government came and bought it out. Whew, crazy times, guys, crazy times. Go check out yesterday's video. You're gonna be really fascinated with it. And I'll catch you later. Thanks for keeping up with AI News for Men, boys. See ya, peace.